as far as, this is more big picture in yellow, and I want to go through this, and then I'll refer back to our schedule and some of the nuts and bolts as far as what we're looking at, and then hopefully get you out of here in about a half an hour, give or take, and then I can ask any questions afterwards that are, or feel free to ask any questions. We have these staff meetings here with all the teachers, and I've noticed, like, if I just open it up, it might be like a personal question. Hey, my son weighs this, what do you think about it, you know, and it's something that's more individual that you can ask me at the end versus the whole group kind of grinning and bearing it. But do feel free, if it's something for the kind of the great or the good, to ask questions, the good or the great, however you phrase that. So, but like I said, I'm Coach Wierzbicki. I'm really pumped about the season. I misspoke to Dawn when I said, oh, it's gonna be better next year, and I completely was opening up garages, and she was like, what? And I was like, oh, I meant to say it's gonna be certainly better than it was last year. As far as, last year was tough. There's no denying that with everything that was going on, and we started late. The caveat for me was my first ever broken bone and a busted hand with some hand fighting skills with Brick Cross during the regional. And it seemed like every day there was just something coming at us, and I think we came out of it stronger and just kind of plowing forward as far as the season went. Had some success, and I think one of the big things that for me is a real success is we were discussing how we probably have the largest group in the state numbers wise as far as people that want to do it, and young people that want to get in the room, and it's not an easy sell. And we're definitely an outlier as far as to have 140 in our youth club. We're pushing 40 down in our middle school, where Chad and I have been helping the last few weeks with some of the football things going on and the playoffs and all that. And so we have definitely a good thing. And then to have 75 kids are registered to be in the room, and so there'll be some big. We're going to have a large tent for sure, and I think it's the biggest team that I've ever coached as far as numbers wise. I think looking at Janet, when Blake was on the team, we had, I remember skin folding for whatever reason, 84 kids, but then there was quite a bit of attrition. So I'm hoping from the group we have returning, we had 50 returning wrestlers. If you do the math, we have exactly 25 freshmen signed up. So I'm really excited about the upcoming season. It's going to be, I think going to be just, we'll get back to whatever normal looks like with travel meets and tournaments and just some of these things. Where truthfully, last year, you get a group of wrestling coaches together. I mean, no disrespect to Coach Adams and Coach Chitwood, but they might be worse than football coaches as far as there's always something to complain about. I got a kid, this or skin funk, or there's a lot that comes at you as a wrestling coach. And last year was, it was pretty exceptional as far as there was always maybe something that we could look at. And we certainly were, well, in retrospect, where we compete only once a week and some of those things. So this, it seems like the team, when I get feedback from them, they're just really excited. To be able to do the travel meets, to be able to have, think about last year, didn't even know if we'd have a state tournament, and just some of those things that we didn't have host school sites for the regionals and sectionals only like a week and a half prior, so we had to kind of really step up, and a lot of you volunteered in hospitality rooms and tournament workers and all that, and limited fans and seating, and now we got the band. I just talked with her this morning coming to all the home duels, so a lot of good stuff coming down the pike. So I want to start with this just at the top. So the yellow packet is, again, certainly more big picture stuff. But reading through this purpose statement in a nutshell, I know I'll maybe never be a millionaire, but I texted Eric Bowen last night, and he's a former wrestler for us, and he lost 8-7 to starting heavyweight from Indiana. And I was telling the middle school kids about him, so I was just thinking about him, and he's this little butterball in 2013. I looked over the team photo just to confirm it in my mind as to what he looked like, and looked like he got hit over the head with a mallet. He's about this high. And the fact that he beat this guy from Bellarine and lost 8-7, of course, he's mad he lost on riding time. He texts back, Coach, I got to figure out that length and getting away and whatever. And then, I texted Tyler Gable about, finishing second at his first open. And it sounds bad in my example because I know there's a lot of other kids that I certainly build that relationship with and stay in contact with. It's not like you got to win state for me to keep in touch with your kids. Now I'm sharing the story. Those are our last 2 state champions, but I really want to use the sport as a vehicle just to make them better humans. And I think it's become kind of a cliche with a lot of coaches maybe, you know, kind of a relationship-centered approach, but to me it's, you know, it's huge. It's why I'm going to do it. And so with that, it's not always clean. Certainly, you know, it's never done perfectly, and that goes without saying, but you know, 1 through 75, I mean, I continue to remind myself they're someone's son and or daughter, and that I'm gonna every day show up and do my best as far as coaching them all up. And so it's a really unique thing where, not to say, well, this program, that program, but with my kids going through other programs, there will be some times where it'll be a separate varsity JV, but it really is where the coaching staff and all 75 kids, it's like we're one bad High School Musical 2.0, like we're all in this thing together. You know, I don't know if you remember that one, the kids would sing the songs, I guess, but we're one big group, and obviously there's some delineation with meets and tournaments and depth chart and skills, but you know, say Cody Gable wants to win a state title, he might be right next to maybe a freshman who's out for the team to get better for football and to improve and to maybe get his fitness and conditioning level up, you know. And so it's really cool that way, where it's, you know, it's wrestling, it's old school. We try to make it as fun as we can. I don't think we, you know, we just constantly keep that big picture in mind. And so you can go through this as far as, I think, like whatever our successes have been and our integrity as a program. I share this with the kids, but my goals continue to be just focusing on the character development. I want to make sure the kids have a good experience. I don't want them to ever leave, you know, their senior year like, oh yeah, I wrestled, it was awful. It was like going, no disrespect to the dentist, you know what I mean, and getting teeth drilled on or whatever, but it's a bad metaphor when you're 8 feet away from me. But anyways, yeah, next time you're working on things, I remember. All right, but anyways, and then I want the kids to have fun. And it's, I think there's a reason we have 75 kids out. I can point to Jeremiah and Randy Dusing and Mark and everybody that's poured into it with the developmental levels, but yet it's not like they get to the high school and we're gonna just every day just meat grind them, bury them. I told the kids today after open mats, like, we're gonna work hard, but there's not gonna be like some hell week and we're trying to get the week to quit and ring the bell and tap or whatever. Like, that stuff is just not what we're about. I want the kids to obviously get after it. We're gonna compete, we're gonna give our best, but we're gonna have fun with it. So you can read through our beliefs and values. I usually pick one a week, and if I just break down December, January into just blocks, that's my focus, is each week looking at some different things that are our core beliefs. It might be a 5-minute thing, it might be a quick video at the end of practice, but just a constant reminder, and it helps me too, as far as what we're about. Now I know, like, I can't potentially, like, we'll talk about grit and what that means. Obviously there's some days where they're gonna physically learn and understand that, when they're getting away and they're on their belly and there's a suction cup on their belly and they can't get away, and they've gotta be gritty and find a way to, you know, compete during a 20-minute grind match and find a way to get to their feet and get an escape or whatever it may be, or discipline or these things. But we'll constantly go back to that as far as our core and who we are. I also picked the slogan, for what it's worth. I hate to admit this too, but now they're the Vegas Raiders, but I'm a big Oakland Raiders fan. So my parents were in Oakland, they got me a Raiders shirt, this and that, and they're, whatever, one of their slogans, they call it Oaktown, so they, you know, big slogan around Oakland is representing the town. And so Oaktown, Mucktown, I'm not the sharpest marble in the drawer, but all 75 kids, I think, pretty much have ties to our community. So our slogan on the poster and different things, the back of the shirt, is simply representing the town. And I know they represent you guys as a family and other things in their world, but they're gonna represent us, and they're gonna represent us well. And however we do, in that big picture fashion. So already the kids are talking. As far as my philosophy here, I guess I jumped ahead a little bit, but I talked about that relationship focus with just high expectations and connections with the kids. So if you can scroll down a little bit. I really think that it's an individual sport. I think it fosters some great relationships, but the team is always first and foremost. And so that's never sometimes clean when you have weight classes and different things, and you've got to figure out your best approach. But it is one of those things where the kids were talking today, like, hey, has it ever happened to us? Like if football wins state and we win state, has it ever been done before? And they were all just bantering like they were at the coffee shop drinking overpriced lattes. And I was like, I don't know, Google it. I don't think it's been done before. And so I was teasing one of the football coaches like, hey, you got to do your part for us to, follow suit or whatever. So with that, that would be a really neat thing for us to get together April 3rd and say, oh my gosh, if you were a senior and you did football and wrestling, like you, or even just as a community to celebrate that. When the last state championship, I think they were talking, that was a WIAA, like male sanctioned sport, was the 04 football team. So it's pretty rare air, but to have those conversations, certainly it's neat to have the kids talking that way. There's a lot of work that's gonna obviously go into that, but if I were to say like that's my goal and that's why I wake up every morning, that would be, I don't know, an absolute farce, So I'm very competitive, but I won't just compromise everything in who we are in kind of a win at all cost mentality, if that makes sense. So, and that's a lot of different things as far as my and just the program itself. So yeah, there's going to be sacrifice. It's rare air. There's 128 teams and only one wins, and we've been obviously swimming in that deep end of the pool. But yet I realized too, in that journey with some of those really successful teams we've had, that life just carries on, and so it's something that's really noble to pursue. But again, going back to just that character focus and big picture things to me are awesome, and that's why I'm doing it. So yeah, Tyler Gable won state last year, and yeah, I was texting him yesterday back and forth. That's all part of it, and then it's kind of funny because he hit me up for a fundraiser for lacrosse, and I went to UWO, so maybe he was working me the whole time for our back and forth. But these are just some things at the bottom. So I'm really big in, we have such a range of kids. I think a few years ago, we kind of went away from it a little bit, and it was a little bit just supervision in the locker room. It was a little bit maybe just the kids on the team, but the different things with just hazing, the freshmen and the pecking order and all that stuff, those are things that I can't stand. So to me, I'll constantly be with the team, and sometimes it may be a half hour of burpees to get through them if they do something stupid in the locker room, or they, whatever it may be. But any of we just had, just things in the program that we had to address. And so that was personally like a constant thing last year and even the year prior, where let's treat each other well, let's treat each other better, and I can't say enough about that issue there. As far as texting or missing practices, it's going to be already up in the air. I mean, speaking of football, everyone knows, or basically one of our expectations is you have to get 10 practices in before you can weigh in and compete in your first meet. Truthfully, if I'm forthright, it's a WIA rule where we have to have as a team 10 practices. I have made it an individual rule, if that makes sense. So if young person chooses to go deer hunting, they were gone 3 days, cool. Go hunt Bambi, be with your family, and they would look at the calendar that you have in front of you, and they would literally X off 10 days. Because I didn't want to be adversarial and say, you can't go hunting, when my oldest boy, Riley, that's a highlight for him with grandpa, So I gotta be consistent, and that was honestly the rule before he became a part of things. So this year, obviously, 10 practices. If you're a member of the state championship football team, that's going to look a lot different. And there, it may be the opposite, where it's like, hey, you feel like a bucket of bolts, practice is optional if you're a member of the state team. Some guys that maybe are reserve players, they might be in there the next practice on Monday. They might be jumping in the scrimmage at Elkhorn. Other kids might say, you know, I'm gonna need through Thanksgiving. I'll see you December 1st, coach. And obviously that's gonna affect conditioning, wrestle-offs, things like that. But again, that's just a case-by-case thing and how we're gonna handle it. Sort of an unprecedented thing, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I was really vague there because I basically won't have the rule, but yet I'm going to try to enforce the rule for people not in football, but then I also know a couple kids are going hunting and they're exactly at 10 practices on December 2nd. Clearly, if you make the rule, you got to enforce it. So it's one I got to talk to my staff about and say, okay, what does this look like? The openers against South, we basically have the non-varsity wrestlers all going to Stoughton and heading west for the opener on December 4th, the Midnight Magic weekend, basically in town, which is a big weekend for us. And then the varsity will go in duels to East Troy. So that'll be, again, I'll just need a little bit of leniency, but then I really think we'll hit our rhythm that second week with our travel trip to Green Bay and the varsity starters and then the JV backups at Luxembourg Casco. So a little bit of unprecedented times. I don't think we've had like a bridge like this to cross recently anyways, but it's a good bridge for sure with the success in football. So this is just an overview of the staff. I've been doing a lot of talking, so you can read just briefly about, for what it's worth, me. On my left, the guy man the mouse this is Chad Leviner. So really fortunate to have him back. He's a special ed teacher at our middle school. Chad, if you look, if you're in the practice room during the wrestle-offs, he's our all-time winningest wrestler, most takedowns, couple times state champ. Probably, one of our most successful wrestlers. He was with me coaching for a few years in transition after college, went up to Adams Friendship and taught and coached up there, was a head coach for 5 seasons up there, built their program, and then I don't want to say off the record, but was smart enough to come back to Mock. I kind of definitely recruited him a lot and a lot of conversations on the phone and everything. So he'll serve as my varsity assistant coach. And then we have, I could flip ahead, many of you probably already know Scott Skornichka. He'll be, he's also new to the staff. He was a state finalist for 2 Rivers. He's helping out with the varsity football. He's an English teacher. He was at all our stuff. So if you came around this summer, any of the summer camp stuff, any of the summer competitions, he was a real foot soldier really before Chad got hired in late July. And really excited. He's going to quarterback our JV team along with Jordan Kroll, who's been in the mix with things. And then Brad Baus he got a promotion at Costco. Many of you know Coach Baus. He will be helping basically like in a real kind of volunteer type status where his job he's working 1,000,000 hours, but basically he has Wednesdays and Saturdays off. So I talked with him about being at Wednesday practices and then with our large JV. He'll oftentimes be with our junior varsity at say like the Stoughton meet. But there may be times where if we have a weekend off, he's with us at the Stack Invite. So he's in kind of a hybrid role with his job. And I wanted to have him around. He's an All-American in college. Our staff, in putting it together, it's a really credentialed group for a high school staff. And so anyways, he's a math teacher at the school and will be around as well. Crow is a math teacher, and then Baus will be around kind of in a more limited fashion. So if you're wondering like, where's Coach? Why is he not here? And some of the Thursday duels, it's going to be, Costco, I can only assume during the holidays, has got to be a zoo. So he got a promotion and happy for him in that way, but he'll be kind of limited. And then guy on my right, Jeremiah Chitwood, he, again, has been helping just, wherever I've needed him as far as last year with the JV, so he'll be around as well, I'm sure. Holiday practices, things like that. But kind of an unofficial yet official person on the staff with the middle school and coming around. So I could have you guys just read through these expectations. I think it's just something to go over with, you know, as far as just some of them are, yeah, okay, they're, of course, we're going to be early for practice, but you're just looking at the practice times. I do think that transitioning from the middle school to the high school, you're going up like 3-4 levels on the video game as far as like practice every day. The freshmen, I constantly am kind of putting my armor on them a little bit because it's tough. You go from being maybe really successful at the middle school to now all of a sudden you're wrestling the high school kids. So like Jack was at open mats, he was in a group of 3 with a couple seniors. I definitely was talking to him like he did fine, he competed, but he also was, you know, on his back a few times or whatever, wrestling some older kids. And so end of the day, because we're all in one big group, it's, you know, it's just different as far as the practice calendar. We practice pretty much every day, if that makes sense. So like we'll have 3 days off around Christmas. Practice-wise, we've kind of found that 90 minutes is our sweet spot once we kind of get our core technique in. And so we found that last year. That was something that we really tried to abide in and just be efficient and, you know, get our 90 in and the kids would leave with a head full of sweat and things like that. But for me anyways, I think it's probably why our junior varsity, when we've gone to JV state, there'll be 100+ teams there. We've never, I think, finished lower than 3rd. And I think it's because Jack is tussling with a couple seniors in a group of 3, and then the next day he finds different partners. So the advantage of having such a big team, a large staff, is they're getting different styles, they're getting all sorts of workout partners. We're 4 deep at every weight class. So that means we have 6 kids at 285. So we can honestly take those 6 kids, put them with a coach, and they can really learn, you know, some of the skill sets for that weight. So there's a lot of advantages to having such a big group. And kind of the old adage, I guess, that steel sharpens steel. And so that's kind of how I felt. We've had a lot of success doing it. The caveat is you can't get discouraged. You know, if you're a freshman, you know, I don't know, like the freshman basketball, I'm not picking on them, they're not going to run full court with the varsity basketball. In our room, there'll be days where we'll do conveyor belts or different things, and they will all be kind of a mixed up pot of chili, you know, where they're all training together, and it's cool. I like the fact that maybe a kid can wrestle a couple goes with a returning state place winner, and barring obviously injury, you know, and you get a feel for, okay, that's the level I want to be at. Do you want to do it every day? No. You want to do it for a whole practice? No. But it's a good experience for a kid to have that. And then the obvious thing as well is there's just so many I think advantages to that as far as having a big group. On your end, as far as having a large group, the hardest thing is getting everybody matches. And so that's a dance where I shared already a number of emails I've got going out and just trying to make sure we can get kids competitions. And I was teasing that I don't think a lot of the area schools want to help Mugwanago Wrestling get better. So like, you know, sending an email saying, can we bring 2 teams to the Fort Atkinson duels for JV instead of 1? Or can, you know, can we, I was talking to Lake Geneva Badger, emailed their coach, so we opened with Lodi. You guys have a large group of JV, you willing to get a bus, come our way, and we'll have a mat where we wrestle the JV versus Lake Geneva, and the other mat, if you follow, our JV versus Lodi, and then the varsity would wrestle at the conclusion. So things like that where I'm trying to be creative and get kids matches. Obviously, the one thing with, and not the early part with football and that overlap, but the big thing is we'll oftentimes when we do partner up or pair up matches, and last year was an outlier with COVID because if you had any symptoms, we didn't want you in the practice room for obvious reasons. So, but obviously your practice room habits and being there and working hard will, obviously if there's one kid at 126, that's a backup on the other team, we will give the non-varsity kid at 126 that has been at practice and working hard, obviously that match. And I hate to say it gets complicated, but if that other coach goes, whoa, 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 my kid's a rookie. He's a first-year wrestler. It's his 3rd week of wrestling. Can he wrestle your 4th and 5th string guys? That's where we got to communicate, because that kid leaves the gym going, I'm busting my hiney, I'm working really hard against the varsity starter, I haven't gotten a match for 2 duels, and that's where you gotta communicate, because it may be the other coach saying, your kid's a hammer, I looked up his track profile, he's 8-1, my kid's brand new, let's wrestle my 1 back up against your 4th and 5th guys. Does that kind of make sense? But I will always send out the Excel sheet of the matchups ahead of time, and then the only thing we do is we scratch from there. So you'll know, like before the home duels or against South, they have a new head coach, but I'll make sure we get that done, where you'll know the match order for the JV, you know, and you guys that have been around know that we just, you know, first available 2 matches with the junior varsity and the duels, and then pretty well on Saturdays it's open mic and everyone attends and competes and gets 3-4 matches in. Some other things just to go through as far as just showering, skin, if you could go through that. For the first day, we're gonna have, it looks like the locker room at the base of our stairs. We expect the kids to shower after practice, so if they can bring a lock for their locker, a towel. The main issue there, and we make exceptions certainly for it, and again, we communicate with the kids if there's an issue with it, but the main thing, of course, is we had to shut our room down a few years ago over basically an outbreak, and this is not a good thing to say in a group of parents, but it was an outbreak of basically herpes gladiatorium, which was pretty serious skin condition, and we had to put a wrap on it. So that was already a few years ago, but you know, things like there's forms and you can't have any communicable skin disease to wrestle. So encourage your son, daughter to bring clean gear, help support them there. Just, it sounds like you're, I don't know, maybe helicopter them a little bit, but remind them to have clean practice clothes. If they do come home and they haven't showered at practice or after, get their butt in the shower at your house like ASAP, you know, and just tell them to clean up before dinner and what have you. So, so that's one where that's an expectation for us. There's some other things. So yeah, I really, the sweaters. So you guys, if I look down to number 17, that's one of our traditions we brought back about a decade ago. Sound old, but it was like an 80s thing, and then probably died out like mid to late 90s. And then the kids, for fun, found some old ones in the storage closet. And you've seen how everyone's dressing now. The 80s are back, you guys, you know. And so they were like, oh, those are sweet dogs. Can we do that? And I was like, oh, okay. So I called Gillette out at Top Line, and so I have those in. So they wear it all 4 years: khakis, tie, collared shirt. Definitely want to, you know, challenge them a little bit as far as, I don't know if I got to motivate them with like, I don't know, a Twitter, social media thing for the sharpest dressed Muck Indian the night of the duel or something, because a few of them are getting a little sloppy with not wearing a tie underneath or what have you. But so that's the one thing. So if you got emails from me, I have extras as well. So that's an expectation, which I know on your end is an extra $30 investment. But then hopefully you ordered up a size and they'll not go up too many weights and they'll have it all 4 years. You know, the cell phone thing for me, I'm not like by any stretch anti-technology, but I love the fact that after watching kids and all day working with them, and if you guys are my class, it would start like this. All right, you guys, we're gonna blah, 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 blah. Everybody's phones in the cubbies, put them away, shut them down, and you're on a constant, what would I say? It's very draining as far as kids have put just their cell phone covers in the pouch. Kids say they didn't bring it, and all of a sudden it's blowing up because mom's texting them. So for me personally, I love the fact that the kids don't have the cell phones in the practice room. At meets, nothing kind of sticks in my craw more than if one of their teammates is out there battling and they're on their phone. So that's one where, you know, I maybe by the grace of God, I didn't throw one across the gym like a rock skipper back in the day when the kid was next to me and we were having a tough match. But I reminded him gently, so to speak, not to have his cell phone on the bench. And of course, they're always texting their mom, or it's something really of an emergency thing. But that being said, if it is, but it's the world we're in. I watch the Nationals at Fargo, and there's kids that you're watching the match stream from our program, and then they'll text me 30 seconds after I just watched the live stream finish, so they got that phone just right with them. So that's I think particularly with our junior varsity, when you're at a tournament, they get long, and all of a sudden I don't want to see like 20 kids on their phones while the rest are wrestling and competing. So that's one, just put it in your bag, and it's hard to tell them just to decompress and old school 1978, just wrestle. Let's wrestle and compete for the day. So the bus, last year was a thing with COVID and not taking the bus. I think honestly that's where we have a lot of good memories built. And so that's something that I really want to encourage. It's not going to get off on the best start with us starting at South, because that's one of the away schools that if you live on that side or in Vernon, I just say, hey, come on, you can just let me know and drive home separate for that one. But certainly, like Pewaukee on the 16th, I'd like the kids to take the bus back. And some of the duels, the ones west and south, basically, are the ones where the kids sometimes live closer than coming back to school. So for wrestle-offs, if you move ahead up here,
Say it, 24.
Yes. So with that, sort of like you get a group of wrestling coaches complaining, you also can find a lot of different ways to do wrestle-offs. What I love about wrestling is the old Tommy Brands, you earn what you get what you earn. And kind of harsh, he said it after his brother missed making the Olympic team and was the returning world champ. And he said, my brother got a valuable lesson today. He didn't earn it. And it's crushing, and it's difficult sometimes because it's so pure. I went away from wrestle-offs for a couple years. Like, I'm the coach. I'm in there every day. I can see your skills, and your skills. And I'm going to, evaluate. And kids hated it. There's something about a wrestler that they want to know, like, it's in their power to make the team and to be a part of it if they wrestle well and they compete. So I have a series of times where they wrestle off for positions on the team. It opens obviously with our blue gold scrimmage on the 30th. It looks like we're gonna have Hank Stillman reffing that match, he's like a Hall of Fame official that is looking to sharpen his skills a little bit and get a practice match in before the opener. And then once we have things established, we do go to a dual tournament. So there are some kids, like I said, with East Troy that'll bring us extras. But then on the 6th, that's a big deal because that's a travel tournament for our JV. And then I can still bring usually 2 or 3 extras to Battle on the Bay, which is a varsity meet, as JV wrestlers. So I can basically bring up hotel-wise about 30 wrestlers. And so there we try to delineate then, okay, who's the starting JV at such and such a weight. And then we'll have mid-December and then some of these other dates where we will have wrestle-offs. We've talked about it a lot as far as how to do it. If once they establish the position on the team, basically to get the spot back, and once they're established, and you can go round and round on this, but in a nutshell, they have to win 2 in a row. So if Chad beats me in the wrestle-off, and then I say next to him, of course, he's flexing on me, right? But if I then, hey, coach, now obviously there's a little bit of gray where if it's 5-4 versus a tech fall, that's a different deal. But if it's 11-1, he beats me and he controls the whole deal. So then I've got to come back and so a lot of times we'll set it up so we'll talk to the kids and say, okay, that match wasn't close the first time, and so they then have to win 2 matches to get that spot, or 2 in a row, if that makes sense, to get the spot back. And particularly, it gets complicated with weights and seeds, but I always try to have the kids, some years they've shifted down with the varsity at Christmas, and even if it's an underclassman at the weight, we pretty much have always communicated with the kids and had a situation where I don't want anyone sitting at Applebee's in 15 years going, oh, Dubs messed me over, I didn't get a shot, and so-and-so came in, and, so I think You know, we've done it as fair as we can. It's just one of those things where if it is close, then we have done kind of the back and forth, like, hey, Jimmy, you won it overtime. We could have probably called stalling in that wrestle off. So listen, Bobby, if you win this time, you're starting for us. Money's on the line. And so we'll say those types of things. And then I always communicate with the kids if we do it in the morning. It's kind of funny, but a few times Coach G has ran the clock for wrestle-offs and other coaches as well. So the only reason I would do it at 6 a.m., just so you know as well, is they can warm up. And then if I know it's going to be like, hey, Chad's a returning state qualifier, I'm a returning conference finalist, we're both seniors, like this is, somebody's going to leave really upset. A lot of times I'll do it at 6 a.m. and it's just for the health of the kid. I don't want them all day thinking about the wrestle-off. We can come in, get them warmed up, and at least there they know by 3 o'clock at practice they're good to go. Like they can, and it's not like they're going to come in like singing sitcom songs or something, all excited for practice usually, but at least then they've had a whole day to process through stuff, and you can talk to them at the start of practice and then hopefully get a good going, if that makes sense. The travel meets are here. You can look that over. Like I said, we're back traveling. It seems like the kids really like that. When I give them exit slips and questionnaires as seniors, that's always a highlight for them as far as that goes. For fundraising at the bottom, we were fortunate enough to work a couple football games with their program advancing, and so I'll see as far as what that looks like, but for you that helped out, I really appreciate that. It's almost, when you look at the money we make as a program, it's almost too good to be true. And then we cleaned up, I think it was after 5 of the football games as well, as a fundraiser that way. So right now with where we're at as a program, and then I think through that kind of service, dare I say, with concessions and cleaning the stadium, we probably fundraised about $5,000 with those two items. So I was doing that calendar raffle thing, which was a lot of work on my end, truthfully. I never felt great about snap raise as far as like just asking for money. It's just, I don't know, it felt, sometimes maybe that's what the way we're going with things. Like, you know, Tyler Gable asked me for a donation and I'm gonna make a donation, if that makes sense, to the program where he's competing in college. So maybe it's cleaner, but I know our guys don't do a great job of selling things, if that makes sense, in some of those items. So right now, with where we're at with things, once I meet with Cheryl Grossman and find out where we're at as a program, I think we're in really good shape as far as that goes with our account. The weight management rules, so we're, just so you know, we're gonna have the percentage test on Wednesday, first week of season. The kids have to be hydrated, and then they do a body fat pinch test. They first pass hydration, then they hop on a scale, and then they do the calipers pinch, and then we enter all the data online on their track wrestling profile. So there's some things that mainly they don't affect probably our junior varsity, more our varsity wrestlers as well, where they can only lose 1.5% a week. Used to be a half pound a day. So sometimes I'm a math major as far as figuring out whether a kid can make the weight or whatever, or by what meet. So we've done it now for 4 years. We've got it down as far as the weigh-in sheets, the post weigh-in where you're entering all the data, things like that. But just ask me if you have questions about that. I know, you know, it's not easy. I live with a lady that the last couple years really wanted to feed her son, and that made it tough. And I'm not gonna lie, like she really, you know, was like, I don't know about this. And yeah, so cutting weight and losing weight is something obviously we try to avoid. The bad news was, you know, sometimes the team is, dare I say, like certain weight classes, very competitive. And so in his situation, to make the varsity, it meant there was some weight loss, and that's tough. So, and that's a tough situation, not like it's tough like buck up, but you try to support that, but it's never easy. As far as yesterday's soccer banquet, I still don't know all the positions, which is embarrassing after my kid playing all these years, but if I say this right, like there was outstanding midfielder and outstanding, I know the goalie, but like I think forward, and so bottom line, I don't have that luxury. Like I can't move like they put up the minutes, the guy's average, that's what it was per game. And I was like, dang, I wish I could do that. Like, hey, so-and-so got so many minutes at 138, and then so-and-so got some more minutes at 45, or you just can't do that. And so that makes it hard because it's like, you guys know, like there were some years where Jake Schulte's in our top 10 for all-time wins and conference finals and state and all that stuff, and then even beat a kid that was a state place winner from Arrowhead and was on the junior varsity, and that was just the way things shook out that year at that weight class. So, so with the percentage test, we'll do it Wednesday. That's our traditional first week. And then normally it's $10 if you fail hydration or if you have to redo the test or you missed school that day or whatever. So a lot of times we're doing a makeup like on Friday, which will be our state football finals. So all those things aren't gonna be the same as what they've been in the past. So we're gonna have a makeup for the football players on the 24th, so the second Wednesday. So think of the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So an easy way to think about it would be we do the scrimmage Tuesday, and then part of practice on Wednesday would be for the football players. I haven't talked to some of the football players, but on that Tuesday next week, I know they're playing for a state championship, but if it's like one of our heavyweights that's 270, and they just need to drink some bottles of water and have their body fat tested, I think they can do that. I got to check with coach as far as their commitment from like 2 to 2:30 after school. But that's something that if they're like at their weight class and they don't have to worry about any of the weight loss or the percentages, they could just take it then on Wednesday the 17th, even though they haven't practiced yet, if that makes sense. So the main stuff here at the bottom, I have the banquet date set for April 3rd, some varsity letter stuff, the miscellaneous things with Twitter and Facebook and Remind. We really have 2 Remind 101s. They wanted to charge me, and I guess I'm a quarter Scottish and I wasn't gonna pay, and so we were above like 150 people. So for the parent one, you're gonna text the 81010 up here, at 1 MUKWRSTLE, and then if you're an athlete, you're just gonna text at MUK 2021. And so that one I send more like wrestling specific stuff, or hey, we were doing this knee pull today, look at this short video. Trying to use technology with the kids, and sometimes the kids will say, hey, that was really sweet, or maybe a screenshot of something motivational we shared at practice so they can take a deeper dive if they want to look at it or whatever it might be. Whereas the one for the parents is a little more stuff like this. 5:30 parent meeting, things like that. And please don't be like, you gotta love family. One of my nephews said, yeah, I haven't been getting your reminds. And I look at his phone and he blocked my notifications on Remind. And I was like, hey, dumb butt, that's the whole purpose of Remind, is to remind you in a nice little family conversation. And of course, my mom took his side, which I don't know how she does that, but grandkids, right? They can never do any wrong. So the calendar itself, look at this as far as the first week. I have tried Google Calendar. I swear at some point in my career I'll figure it out. I kind of have a system with what they set up for my staff directory at the school. So this is our calendar for the first 2 months. I was already saying there might be a few changes with junior varsity things, and mainly that involves just trying to get our guys matches. So to get the kids matches. So like I said, I know it's gonna be better than last year, where I think we had a couple kids lead our junior varsity in wins that were like 9-0 or 10-1. Like it was very minimal. But on the other hand, you can see we do have kind of some open tournaments that the kids would go to between Waukesha West, Stoughton, West Allis Central. So there might be one junior varsity meet that I add on the 18th of December if I can find something there, and I will let you know as far as that goes if we are able to fill the schedule there. I struggle with that though, because the kids then would wrestle as well on the 20th, so it's just not clean right now as far as finding things. But I know Lodi, Pewaukee, South, I don't think any of those 3 programs have really good numbers on their JV. So it's a credit to you know, everything that I talked to Randy Dusing yesterday. I was on the airline bike and he came in. Gotta love Randy. He was wrestling with a 6th grade boy who's new but is nervous to start the Grizzly being so new. And so here's Randy showing up for a half hour just to drill with him one-on-one to make sure the kid's comfortable coming to the practice once it gets going. And he didn't just do it once because I saw him up there another time. So he's kind of individually helping this kid, and this is a brand new kid. So there's been a lot of, certainly a lot of foot soldiers and time put in to our numbers and where we're at. Of course, the hardest thing, and it's a little bit like this at Parkview as well, when I would go to the meets, is, you know, getting that mat time. So one year I took the approach like, hey guys, your best matches are gonna be in practice. And we would do a lot of practice matches, but it's still not the same, because you're not there. You know, and the crowd's not there, and it's like we can have some fierce battles in the room, and short of me filming it and putting it on Twitter or something, who's to know, right? And so I'll do my best, but I could just forewarn you that it doesn't look great. On the other hand, Pewaukee's coach always kind of, I don't know, he's maybe a realist, but also sees the glass a little a glass half full, sorry. Nothing he's doing that's half, you know, but so anyways, he was saying that his numbers are low, but who knows? This is about a month ago when I talked to him. So last thing, just read through this coach's code of conduct. This is something I wrote, and it's tough because I remember there was a boy that I swear I had him coached up on how to defend legs, one real attentive at practice, and I was feisty as a young head coach, and I thought I knew a lot of stuff, and he wasn't paying attention. And he got the dog rode out of him at state, of course, leg riding, because I knew the kid in the second round was going to put in boots. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, I don't want to lose this relationship with this kid. He's a senior, crushing blow, he lost at state. I'm not going to lie, as a man, there's a part of me like, daggone it, why don't you listen? You know, because he's 17, and maybe his girlfriend broke up with him, or he's got 5 classes that he's, you know, behind on because he's going to state, and he's losing weight, and he's not, you know. And so I remember thinking, like, I don't want to lose that relationship with that kid, because of course I thought I was the coach and I emptied the vessel of knowledge, and the young person maybe wasn't always super receptive to my knowledge. They were stubborn, and then I really wanted Janet to give an I told you so, like, hey, listen. And so I think honestly, those experiences, I mean, sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I've got to rub my knee with CBD, whatever, and arthritis, this and that, and maybe not, you know, your body kind of breaks down as you go through all this stuff, but yet that side of it, I know for me as a parent, I really want to trust my kids with the coach, if that makes sense. And it's funny how, as much as I think, if I were to blow my own horn and say, I never do it perfectly, but it's an asset where, all right, go get a Coke Zero. You're not going to tell this kid that he's an idiot and should have listened how to ride legs and begged on it, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I see that kid still around town, and I'm so glad I didn't have that conversation, because it was emotional, it was heated, and it's wrestling. And he lost, and his career ended that day. And I'm glad, because it was like, well, what would I say that would help him? But I know this, if I would have said what I really wanted to say, when I see that young man at Quick Trip now, I think he would probably be like, I don't like that guy anymore, you know? And so I do my best and I think all our coaches do that. Just, you know, so this is something that when we meet as coaches, I'm gonna read through every statement with them, and I think that, you know, I can't speak for other adult men, but I can tell you that we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna do it to our best, and I just want you guys to feel good that it won't be 100% perfect, but, and it's a big but, I feel really good about, and privileged, honestly, for you guys to entrust your kid with me, if that makes sense. Because they're going to spend a lot of time with us the next 3 months. And so sometimes more than they'll see you, if that makes sense. Like, if I put an odometer on it, my daughter spent more time with the tennis coaches probably than she did me this past fall, because you got practice and this and that, and by the time you finish things or homework or whatever, you know how it goes. So I'm really excited about things. Are there any questions about this here, the schedule, or anything along those lines. If there is, feel free to come up and talk to me about that. And then this is just a schedule. I could have sent this to you electronically. If you're old school like me, you magnet it to the fridge, you cross things off, you write like, you know, little notes or win-loss marks or whatever on them, and also enter it in your phone. So the first one is kind of an all-program schedule. The second one is like what'll go on our poster, that's our varsity schedule. And then this is like our JV-only schedule. The one last thing with the JV that I want to highlight is, before you guys go, is just schedule-wise. We do have the JV state, and that's back on the 22nd. So that regional is going to be Saturday, January 8th, when the varsity's at the Cheesehead. And so that's a really neat thing for the JV kids to kind of aspire towards. One year we made a little bit too big a deal out of it, and I had to move a kid from JV state to help the varsity at Zielinski. And that was tough because he was kind of, weirdly enough, disappointed to not go win JV state and help us with the varsity because of an injury. But that's a neat thing where just for the travel meets, as you look over, that's one that they stay up north, and that's kind of a neat capstone to the year. And so that's one that I'm excited, just with our depth and that type of thing, that hopefully we've talked a good game about it, but we've always said, like, not only just football winning state, but it'd be pretty cool to hit the top at both levels. And that would say a lot about just the whole thing. So take a look there, and that's something that a lot of times people have questions, but I think you have to qualify top 3 at the regional, and we've had sometimes anywhere from like 14 to upwards of 20 kids that qualify, and then they'll go overnight. And then they also have the overnight trip if you're on the JV to Green Bay. But I'll do hopefully a decent job of communicating a lot of this stuff via email as far as itinerary and things like that. So, all right, I think that's it. I'm excited for things. Please stick around if you have any questions or you want to say hi to Chad. Let me know. I know, you timed me. I was over.